Hello, Alisa. So I am Mark Shapiro, Artistic Director and Conductor of the Chamber Chorus Cantori, New York. And my guest today is Alisa Zaika. Alisa is a composer of a work called The List of Sunken Ships. The reason
Yes.
that we are speaking to each other is that Cantori, New York will be performing Alisa's beautiful piece on March 8th at 8 p.m. and March 9th at 2:30 p.m., both at Church of St. Francis Xavier, beautiful place, on West 15th Street off of 6th Avenue. And Alisa is going to join us for those concerts. And this came about because Alisa was the winner, first prize winner, of a composition competition that Cantori had. And I think it's wonderful to note here that this was a anonymous competition. Nobody knew Alisa, and the pieces were judged by objectively through a selection process. And I came in at the very end, and I became aware of this piece, and I was really thrilled. So we have begun looking at it. It's just a magnificent, beautiful piece. So it's my pleasure to have a bit of a conversation with Alisa about this music. So, Alisa, congratulations. Hello.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, first, tell us about yourself and tell us where you are.
Okay, first of all, I'm really, really grateful to be able to do this. I'm really excited for this. Um, my name is Alisa Zaika. I am a Ukrainian composer and a little bit conductor. I study in London currently at the Royal College of Music. But right now I'm in Ukraine, in Kyiv. Um, I could say something a little bit short about the kind of music that I write, but I guess that I experiment with a lot of different styles. It's very hard for me to categorize my music, but mostly what I'm very inspired by is poetry, and in particular Ukrainian poetry. So this particular piece, The List of Sunken Ships, it's kind of um, it comes from there.
The poetry is beautiful. Can you tell us more about the poetry and the poet?
Yes, of course. So the cycle, it's a book of poetry that I used, is actually called, the original name of it is The Catalogue of Ships, and it's written by Serhiy Zhadan, who is currently probably the most popular poet in Ukraine. As far as I know, he is also quite known abroad, not just in Ukraine. Um, and I think his poetry is just it's so versatile in so many ways, so it resonates with a very, very wide audience. I think that's the important thing about it. And just a few words about this particular book of poetry that he wrote. He wrote it in 2020, and he wrote it after the death of his father. So the book consists of three chapters. The first two chapters are poems. There are 60 poems in total. And the last chapter is prose. It's just this kind of chapter of prose in which he um, describes his father's funeral and kind of reflects on a lot of things. And it's definitely a very, very personal and painful book to read, both the poetry and the prose chapter. I would say in the poetry there are also a lot of nostalgic things about his youth in Eastern Ukraine, where he was born. And then in the prose chapter, there are kind of a lot of very also personal and painful reflections. So when I came across this book, I was absolutely in love with the text immediately, and I felt like it was something I just really had to work with.
And is this poet somebody you have met or spoken with?
No, I have never met him in person. I have only emailed with him, kind of very in a very small um, kind of basically the only email that I've ever received from him was him giving his consent for me to use his poetry in the piece, and not much more. As far as I know, currently Serhiy is actually in the armed forces of Ukraine. Um, yeah, so he has a lot going on.
Yes, absolutely. And you were saying, I think it's okay to mention that you're in Kiev now, and you said
Yeah.
you had an experience this morning, or
Yes, we did have quite an experience because for probably the past few months, there were really big drone attacks on Kiev almost every day, but everyone is really, really used to them at this point. But this morning we had a large ballistic missile attack, which was probably like 7 or 8 ballistic missiles at 7 in the morning. And it kind of really shook up a lot of people because we didn't have a ballistic attack for quite a while. So it's like, you know,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. And you're staying with family?
Yeah, so I'm staying here with my mom. I'm in our flat in our apartment right now.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, we all, are thinking of you and holding you here. So, yeah. How
Thank
long
you.
how long will you be
That's
in
very good
Kiev?
to hear.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Sorry.
How long will you be staying in Kiev?
So I'm here until the New Year's, and then I go back to London because I'm still studying, so my term time will start again.
Yes, understood. So, yes, we're so excited. I think after you won the competition, we were excited to see how early career you are. I think we felt, wow, this is somebody whose talent we really could feel. Um, can you tell us
Oh.
anything about maybe musical influences for this piece in particular? Do you think there was
Um,
anything, any style of music or composer that is in your mind as you were writing this music?
yes, so there, of course, there were some musical influences. One thing I can say is that when I just started my undergraduate degree, um, I kind of I was very much influenced by kind of like post World War II avant-garde and new complexity and things like that, just like really, really complex atonal music. I was very excited by it. I mean, I was like 18 years old and it just looked really cool to me. Um, and kind of going forward, and now I'm in my second year master's. I've been getting more and more influenced by tonal music and actually older music. So I would say right now my style kind of comprises this like spectrum of tonality, of like traditional tonality and kind of consonance and dissonance. And I sort of like work on that spectrum depending on like what the music needs, I guess. And for this piece in particular, um, I had it in my ears, sort of um, Orthodox Christian type music you would hear in churches, which, of course, not the entire piece is like that, but there are some particular places where I can like kind of pinpoint where I used like specific influences from like Eastern European Christian music that you would hear in a church, like sacred music, which is, of course, like different from like sacred music from other cultures. Like we kind of have our very own particular style. And the thing is, in this book of poetry, one of the themes is kind of the author's dialogue, or rather monologue, with God. even though the poet himself, which I think he's like actually stated it himself, he's an atheist, but in this book of poetry, he kind of explores this relationship between a person who is atheist and God, which is quite like an interesting thing to read about. Like in some poems, he's literally just talking to God and saying like things like I don't believe that you exist, but like I'm still talking to you. So there are a lot of intertwining things, and religion and church is definitely one of them because he's talking about death a lot. So you kind of inevitably come to that, you know. I mean, like to the theme of religion in a way.
And were these sounds that were already in your imagination, or you did research to find them?
They were definitely already in my imagination because I grew up in Ukraine and I've heard a lot of sacred music. I've heard a lot of kind of bells, you know, like church bells and the little choir singing in a church. So I've been really like immersed in this type of music
Did you sing
from
in a
like
choir?
hmm?
Did you sing in a
Sorry?
choir?
No, I actually don't sing. It's one of the things that I absolutely cannot do. Like I'm tone deaf. Like I swear, if
Mhm.
you try to like ask me to sing, I will fail. I can't do it.
That's so surprising. Yeah. What is your primary instrument?
Piano.
Piano.
So I kind of studied to be a pianist while I was studying in Ukraine. But then somewhere during my undergrad, I kind of started my undergrad in London as joint principal study, piano and composition. But I kind of slowly dropped piano around my third year. I kind of, I guess I just wasn't interested in it that much at this point, and I also injured my hands a bit over the years. So I just decided to focus on composition, and also now I do conducting along with it.
Mm. Wonderful. So the list of sunken ships is also with cello, and
Yes.
I wonder if you could speak about your choice of cello. Why the cello?
Actually, it's kind of a background story. So in particular, I wrote this piece for a choral conducting student from the Kyiv Academy of Music
Really?
uh, in in 2023, like just last year. She was graduating and she wanted to do a contemporary piece for her graduation recital. So, kind of a mutual friend connected us together and we decided to collaborate. And some conditions were kind of discussed together with her, something that she wanted this piece, what she wanted it to look like, kind of. And it was actually her idea to use like one or two instruments um, for the piece. And I don't really remember if it was her who suggested cello or if I decided to use cello, but it definitely kind of probably was the first instrument that came to my mind. It's very human voice like,
Yes.
obviously, and I think it just when you hear the sound of cello, it's kind of like the most um, intimate, personal type of sound. It's sort of like your soul being completely naked. Like I don't know how to describe it differently, you know?
So you feel the cello is very much expression of the human voice and soul.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I think that makes a lot of sense from its register and its color. So the piece has had a performance from this student.
Yes, that's the only time this piece has been performed. So she did an amazing job. She gathered a choir of students, um, and they performed it in a church, like in a cathedral here in Kiev, which was really great. I mean, I'm so happy that this happened. Unfortunately, I could not attend the performance because I wasn't in Ukraine, like I couldn't be in Ukraine at the time. Um, yeah, also some things like in the way I wrote the piece, I kind of try to make them a bit on the simpler side in terms of performance and rhythmic structures and harmony, specifically because I was writing for a student choir.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's actually not a bad thing, like simplifying simplifying the music isn't always bad. Like it can actually like limiting yourself in a way can lead to better results.
I think that's very true. And so another piece that Cantori will be performing on the same program is by a composer, an American, Adolphus Hailstork. We've worked with quite a bit, and he will be 85 soon. And I think
Wow.
he is quite aware of how to come to the essential ideas. And I think it's very interesting that a young composer like yourself already has this insight about sometimes one can over compose, and that, I've seen pieces by some younger composers that can be very, 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 very complicated. And your music is not that way, but it does not feel in any way that it lacks depth and dimension. It feels very profound. So I think
Thank you.
yeah, that's such an important thing to be able to achieve. So is there anything else you would like to say to a New York audience that's going to experience this piece in March with you there?
Well, I mean, first thing is that I'm really, really excited. I'm so excited for this. I have never been to the US before.
Oh,
Um, Uh, Hopefully, this will be my first time in the US. I'm really, really happy to be able to, first of all, kind of present Serhii Zhadan's poetry in musical form. And of course, I'm really happy for this music um, to sound, in front of the international audience, not just the Ukrainian audience, because kind of, I feel a sort of responsibility as an artist from Ukraine to keep getting our culture out into the world because we've been for so long deprived of it, like because of all the repressions, because of the Soviet Union. Um, we've been just like deprived of showing the world what like amazing kind of stuff we can do.
mhm.
So yes, I'm really happy and I'm very grateful for the opportunity, of course.
Well, we're thrilled to be doing it. I'll stop the recording and then we can finish up.
Yes, sure.